Is it?
I think it's
Live?
on.
Oh my gosh!
So we are going to give everybody a couple of minutes to jump online. This is the very first time that we have done this. So I'm sure it's going to be a little bit silly and fun, but this is going to be us raw and unedited. And we're going to talk all about things that are small business. So we'll just hang out and
see where this goes.
Yeah, should be fun.
Yeah. You're going to get the unedited, raw silliness. That is us.
That's very true. So we'll give everybody a minute to jump on, and then we'll go from there and talk a little bit about small businesses.
Nice.
So what's up, D?
Not much. So here's a scoop. So we're kicking things off. It is Small Business Saturday, after all. I have been saving this bottle of Cigar City Brewery's Life is Like for years. I don't think there's a year on this, but
for those of you who aren't familiar, Cigar City Brewery is a local brewery to Tampa Bay, which is why it is relevant to the conversation this evening.
True. And I've been a member of their El Catador Club and kind of a little bit of a beer nerd. So I have literally been holding on to this bottle for a long time. And I thought tonight was a very special occasion. This is our very first live stream. So I thought tonight's the night to crack it open. And that's what we're doing. So we're drinking, we're having a good time. We're going to answer some questions. We're going to talk some local business stuff. Just going to hang out.
Well, and before we dive in, and for those of you guys who are just joining us, we might as well address the elephant in the room. As you've noticed, we are not in our Airstream.
Or the newest Airstream that is about 3,000 square feet. No, not really. This is just her dad's house, to be honest with you.
So right now we are waiting on our Airstream to arrive to Tampa. It was supposed to get here on the 22nd, but due to a vendor issue with a part, it didn't ship on the 12th like it was supposed to. So it is supposed to ship on Monday. And we should be getting her in the next week or so. So that means, thank goodness, my lovely father is willing to host us and all of our crazy while we wait on her.
Yeah. Yeah, your dad's a saint.
Oh, look. Leah says a little bit of a beer nerd.
I mean, maybe a little. I may or may not have a collection of beers. It happens. I don't travel on the road with it, but I do store it at her dad's house. So when we come back, it is the perfect opportunity to crack open some Cigar City. And also Cycle Brewing here in St. Pete. I love you too, with all my heart.
Oh, let's see. Does Daniel call the RV a her too?
That's a very good question. There was a bit of compromise that happened originally because when we first got the truck, and it is a big F-250 monster truck, Lauren called it a her, and I said, there's no way you can call a Super Duty F-250 monster truck a her. So she goes, no, it's a her, and I go, okay. And then we got the Airstream a couple of weeks later, and she goes, oh, the Airstream's definitely a her. So we compromised. So I said, you get to call the Airstream a her, but I'm calling the truck a he. And we've come up with some names, and we've decided to call the truck Sully because it's a big blue monster, and that's the monster from Monsters, Inc.
And Sully is a boy, so
that's right.
Now we call the truck a boy, and our Airstream is a girl. But one of the exciting things about our brand new Airstream is that we get to name her, and we have not come up with a name yet. So if y'all have ideas on what we should name our new Airstream that should be here in the next week or so, you're all ears.
Yes, because one of the beautiful things is that you can actually get, the Airstream has these like plaques, and you can actually register it. It's like an Airstream registry, and then they'll not embroider, it's a metal plaque. They engrave it with the name that you select, and then it's part of the official Airstream registry, which is super cool. And everybody has an Airstream. Well, I would assume most people do, have named it and have the plaque somewhere, typically in their Airstream. So we need some names. So if you have some ideas, throw it out there because the Airstream has not been named yet.
And we've got to do that in the relatively near future. But I think Miss Nina has a perfect question that moves us into our conversation about small businesses because Nina asked, What did we miss most about home? And honestly, outside of obviously our friends and family, you guys,
so
we miss y'all when we're not here in the Tampa Bay area. But our small businesses that we visit and love to regularly go see, those are some of the biggest things that we missed. So if you're just now tuning in and you have not met us before, my name is Lauren.
And my name is Daniel.
And together we are Wander Local. And we are on a mission to visit all 50 states in 365 days, shopping 100% American made and as locally sourced as possible. The reason we decided this adventure made sense for us is for the last 10 years, we built our own small business. When the pandemic hit, it sucked. And there has never been a time that has been more critical that you are shopping in local businesses to support our communities. We started doing a little bit of research and discovered very quickly that our economies would get a significant boost in revenue by the billions of dollars if every single American family spent only $10 a month with a local owned business. And a small business is typically defined by having 250,000 employees or less.
250,000.
No, 250 employees.
If you have 250,000 employees, you have a really big company.
250 employees or less, and doing $20 million or less in revenue. And this is where a majority of your small businesses live and breathe. And shopping small business means putting food on the table of your neighbors.
Small businesses are they're the heartbeat of America, and they always have been. Would you agree?
1,000%.
Yeah.
So that's the reason we incorporated the Shop Local into our mission. And when we were looking, because we've been traveling for about a year and a half before the pandemic started. So when we looked around, found a way to travel that we felt like was safe, we found Airstream. And one of the biggest reasons we decided to work with them is because they are American made. We actually got the chance to visit Jackson Center, Ohio, which is where their factory is, a couple of weeks ago, which was amazing. But it just really solidified for us even more why this is important.
I think one of the biggest things is that, people can talk the talk, but we actually walk the walk. We had a Mercedes and lived comfortably, and we got rid of it all. I mean, we traded the Mercedes for an F-250 Ford, and
we're truck people.
We're truck people now. I will be the first one to tell you that I did not like trucks ever, and now I'm freaking in love with trucks. I mean, literally, our last trip was 12 hours, and I felt like I was sitting in a recliner. It was like a lazy boy reclining seat.
The truck's great.
The truck's awesome, honestly. And even down the road after this adventure comes to a conclusion, which I don't think it will because we're kind of obsessed with this whole lifestyle now, I would probably still have a truck. I mean, it's pretty cool.
That would have never been said pre-pandemic. But
That's
Matt
right.
just mentioned, yes, 100%. As small business owners, this has been a rough year. We recently had an article that came out in the DuPont Registry, which is a local magazine here. And I talked about how we even had to lay off 2 of our team members. And it was the first time we've experienced that. And it's just been really rough for small businesses. So any way that you can give back, and we're going to share some of those tips and tricks with you guys for our local businesses and putting money back into our economy is so important. So Daniel, you want to talk a little bit about the difficulties that we've had in shopping local?
I mean, so it's Small Business Saturday. We've been on this journey for around 3 months, 2.5, 3 months. We have learned a lot, even in the first 2.5, 3 months. So let me start coming with a few stories from our first few days, on this adventure, right? So you get an Airstream, you've never had an RV, and the first thing they tell you is, okay, you have this really awesome and potentially expensive Airstream or RV or whatever it is that you buy. You're going to need all of these tools to go with it, right? That you don't currently have. So you go to Home Depot or Lowe's, or ideally you would go to Ace Hardware because a lot of those can be owned by local people. And you start looking for tools. And then the first thing you do is you start picking up the tools and you start looking at the packaging, right? Because that's what we should do if we're looking to buy American products. And I will tell you that there are so many brands in the tool manufacturing space, those who shall not be named. I'm not even going to mention their names here because I don't want to give them any kudos, that are manufactured all over the world. I found one and it was one. Literally, you go to Home Depot and Lowe's, and I really only found one, and it was Craftsman. And I thought, boom, that's it. I'm going to go with all Craftsman, everything, and that is going to be the answer, right? So I started going to the measuring tape, and I'm picking up different like measuring tapes. This one's made in America. This one's made in America. Wait a minute. This one's made in Vietnam? I don't really understand. They're measuring tapes, and they're all Craftsman, but it says, what is it? It says made in America on these, and then it says assembled in America.
Assembled in America, manufactured globally is what it says.
Yeah, so that's something you need to be wary of when you're looking to buy American products, or whatever it is. Let's just say, for instance, you're watching, you're a subscriber, you're in whatever country it is. I mean, if you look at the packaging, it'll tell you if it's made there or typically if it's manufactured there. So that's one of the first things that we learn. Not everything that has an American symbol is actually made in the USA.
So sadly, one of the things that we didn't know before we started this 100% American made, shop as locally owned as possible, is how much our economy really isn't set up for small businesses to manufacture in the United States of America. It just really is cost prohibitive. We've talked to so many entrepreneurs who are creating these cool new products that help us get through the pandemic. And they're like, we're based in America, but we can't simply manufacture in the United States because it's cost prohibitive and we can't compete. So that's something that we all need to be aware of. Shopping 100% American made and assuming that nothing is manufactured outside of the US is pretty much impossible, but we just try to do the best that we can because that's pretty much all you can do.
Yeah, I think so. And yes, are you going to spend maybe $1 more by buying it from a local business? Potentially, but you're helping out that local business because you're not buying it from like a global distributor. And that should mean something, especially now, in this time of need.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So maybe, spend that extra $1 to support that local business.
Well, and it takes time. It takes more time. It often takes more money and a little bit more effort to shop local, but it's critical. Okay. Quick pause because Manuela has asked us a question and she says, did you guys get used to the small space, or how did we get used to the small space in the Airstream?
That's a good question.
Holy moly. This is something people ask us a lot because the Airstream is less than 250 square feet.
That's true.
And we are a couple who is not perfect by any stretch of the imagination.
Definitely not.
People ask us all the time, how have you guys not murdered each other yet? One of the things that we laugh about with the Airstream is for the first month when we moved in, we had what I called perma bruises. So on the back of your head right here, on your legs. And the reason being is because when you live in a space that's that small, you bump into everything. So whether you're washing the dishes and you knock your head on the back of the cabinets, it's intense. But
did that a few times.
Thankfully, kind of after the first 30 days or so, you just get used to the smaller space. Organization is crazy important. And we've got a YouTube video coming up in the next couple of weeks that talks about how to organize in a small space. So super important, which is relevant no matter how large you live.
I would say probably the biggest thing is that we're efficiency experts. I would consider us. I mean, we will think through every step of the process, right? But in this instance, we had to kind of learn as we go. So we had a game plan going into this RV life, and we had everything ordered and situated and organized as we thought appropriate. But then you get a week or two into the journey and you realize you're not using that pressure cooker ever. And why the hell did you even bring a pressure cooker? Period. That's right? True. I mean, you bring so many things you think you're going to need, and then you don't use them. Yep. So then they're just in the way, right? Because you don't have a lot of space, even though the Airstream does have a lot of storage. So you're just combing through random crap to get to the stuff you actually need. So then every week or so, you're going back and you're reorganizing all of your stuff again. And
Real.
You're right.
Real.
Right.
Okay. So Caleb asks us about talking about marketing, business, and how you've been able to work remotely. So working remotely is probably, it's something that we've gotten really good at over the last 2 years because we've been traveling so much, whether it's battling time zones, battling internet issues, which is probably the biggest thing we've struggled with the Airstream. We actually have a brand new internet setup that is coming in at the same time as our new unit. We've talked to other Airstreamers and RVers, and they've helped us kind of select what we needed because it's very different for every person. Obviously, we do a lot of video content, so being able to upload quickly is critical for us. So we've got a new fancy router. We use multiple providers because, oh my goodness.
That's a good point. So in some areas of the country, it doesn't matter what carrier you have now, Verizon will reign supreme. And in others, AT&T reigns supreme. And there are obviously other carriers, but those two have the largest network. So unless you're like balancing the two networks, you're going to have some difficulties.
So that's probably been the hardest part about the working remotely. As far as marketing our business, we probably should do a whole nother video on how we do that because that's what we do in our real jobs. So Caleb, we'll hold on to that one for you and put that on our list of things that we need to do next. So Liz gives us a question about local. So we're going to bring it back to local. And as far as favorite local finds so far,
oh my gosh.
Chris actually says, how do you handle wardrobe and limited clothing selections and no washing machines? Okay, y'all have so many amazing questions.
Good stuff.
We should have started doing this earlier. This is fun.
No, this is really good stuff though.
So as far as our local favorite finds, we're always foodies. Forever and ever. And one of the things that we love to do to shop local and is the easiest thing that you can do to shop local and put more money back into your economy is to never lose an opportunity to dine local.
Oh, amen to that.
So when we were in Atlanta, we found this incredible vegan place called VBQ.
Like BBQ, but vegan. So
they
VBQ.
had a Nashville hot chicken sandwich, which was insane.
That's so awesome.
So good.
Still dream about it.
So that's one of our favorite things that we found that was local from a restaurant perspective while we've been on the road so far. But other things that I would note that are really good ideas when you're trying to shop local and put more money back into our local economies when it comes to restaurants is first avoid the third-party apps. And no Uber Eats, Grubhub, all of those things are easy. And we don't even always avoid them. But restaurants have relatively low profit margins. So when you decide to avoid those third-party apps and instead just call the restaurant, order via the phone, like old school style.
For real. It's gotten so bad. I mean, before Grubhub and Uber Eats, we would have just called the restaurant and some of them even already offered delivery services, right?
Yep.
You want Chinese food, you order Chinese food from a restaurant, they would deliver it.
Right.
But now we want to go through Uber and Uber takes a cut, right?
And it's typically a pretty big cut. So ordering directly from the restaurant, I know it's difficult to get in the car and just drive to the restaurant, but you can do it. I'm doing it, so you can too. Will really improve their profit margins. And when you go in there, of course, stay safe. A lot of them do bring directly to your car, which is perfect. You just call in, they'll bring it out to you. But make sure you're tipping even when it is a pickup order, because that's another great way that you can give back to a local community. Before all of this happened, I'm not typically a tipper for delivery. Not delivery, but like when you just pick up an order.
Sure.
But I know now that that's one way that I can give back to those people who are frontline workers. And so that's a great way to, when you're picking up your food, add even just a couple more dollars as a tip for that person who took the time to bag your food and all that good stuff is awesome.
Here's another tip that I learned from somebody else online. If you have favorite restaurants within your community, and they were kicking butt before, and now they're maybe at 25, 50, 75% capacity, buy gift cards. Even if you're quarantining and you're like a strict quarantine, you don't want to go out and you don't want to do whatever, buy gift cards from them and then use them later. But all small businesses struggle with cash flow issues.
Yep.
All small businesses struggle with cash flow issues, right? So buy a bunch of gift cards for your favorite restaurants. And that is one way that you can help these guys out. And just apply it down the road, when
100%.
things pass. It's a really
When a lot of when the pandemic
Yeah.
actually started, it showed that there was a lot of support for small businesses, purchasing gift cards, purchasing certificates, and that's
Yeah.
really dropped off
Right.
because now we're all kind of settling into the level of misery that is living in a pandemic.
Yeah.
So if that's something, as you're looking for holiday shopping ideas, that's a
Yeah.
great way to give back to local businesses quick and easy without having to know exactly what somebody on your list wants. But Renee asks a great question. She says, what's your best tip for finding local businesses when you travel? Social media, local papers, asking around. Okay,
got a really
we'll
good
give
one.
Daniel this one first.
Yeah, because I knew you're going to have a couple as well. My favorite tip, the second we go into a new city is, well, there's a couple I can think of. I'm just going to stick with one because I know Lauren has a bunch as well. The second we go into a city, the first thing we do, this is our tip, is we go to a local, small, not always dive bar, but small bar, not like one of those big bars. And we talk to people at the bar. We talk to the bartender, we talk to locals, and they will give us a million tips about the favorite restaurants and places to drink and eat and things to do. I mean, literally, the first thing we do is we go to a local bar and we just ask people that are locals.
Well, and I'll add to that a little
Yeah.
bit because I typically do the initial search
That's true.
for whatever that local dive bar
Yeah.
is. And I usually do it through
Yeah.
either Yelp or Google. And the reason I do it through those two platforms is they offer
Yeah.
the ability to check
That's
for
true.
outdoor seating,
Ah,
which
good
right
point.
now is very important because we're
Yeah.
trying to stay outdoors as much as we possibly can. And B, they allow you to see like ratings for
That's
the
true.
local business as well as if they're open right now. Because a lot of the time, especially in that we've really used
Yeah.
Google Maps a lot for this right now,
Right.
because there's so many local businesses. We just have to understand that they're going through hard times and they're not having normal hours. So a lot of them are updating their Google
My
Maps
business.
or Google My Business
Yeah.
listings. So we haven't had any trouble
Yeah.
running into a closed local business using that app. So that's a good starting point.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good tip. So because there's so many apps out there where you can find local businesses. Like we use one called Happy Cow for vegan businesses and things like that. But the businesses aren't really updating the profiles. So you'll show up at a business and it says it's open, but it's actually closed. We've found in our travels over the last 2 to 3 months that Google Maps or Google My Business is the one that most people have been keeping updated.
Mhm.
So that's the one you definitely want to use because that's the one people are keeping updated with. Do you have dining availability?
Yeah.
And again, it might say they don't have dining availability. And Lauren has called and said, do you have dining availability? And they go, oh, absolutely. They just might not have updated their Google profile.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
Well, in most
Yeah.
restaurants, they
Yeah.
want to be open right now. So they're
Yeah.
creating a lot of makeshift outdoor seating, which is wonderful. And the easiest thing to do is just call.
Yeah.
If you find one that has great reviews and the photos of the food look amazing and you want to check it out,
Yeah.
just give them a call. They'll be quick to answer if they're open and happy to have you in their outdoor seating options.
Hi, Jane. Welcome.
So also
Yeah.
other things that I would note about finding local businesses, one of the
Yeah.
things that we love to do, and that's great to do even in the
Yeah.
pandemic, is just get out and walk around your
Oh my
neighborhood.
gosh.
That's one of the easiest ways to find local businesses. I can't tell you how many
That's so
times we've
true.
decided to just get up, walk outside, maybe make coffee in the Airstream first and walk around
True.
and see what we can find, or even driving 10 minutes down the road to a downtown area. And have found, local grocers or pharmacies that are locally owned, local clothing boutiques, which of course are a
Yeah.
personal favorite of mine.
Yeah.
I'm actually wearing this kimono from Miss Red Outfitters in downtown
That's
St.
true.
Pete, which is a personal favorite. So just getting out, not only is walking incredibly good for your health and your mental sanity, it's a great way to find locally owned businesses too.
On that note, one of the other things that we do, we hit new cities, is we look for local farmers markets, right? I mean, that is a really, really big thing. You can find local produce, you can find local goods, and those are like, again, I feel like they're like the heartbeat of a city, right? Because these are like your honest to God, down to earth, like entrepreneurs that are really like fighting the good fight, and they are always there at these local farmers markets. And you really, 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 if you're going to a new town and you want to learn more about a new town, go to a local farmers market, shop for some of your favorite things, and just meet the people and talk to them and ask them some questions.
Well, and especially if you're looking to cook healthy, because I think somebody asked a few minutes ago, do we cook as much as we used to before we moved to the Airstream? Because obviously our kitchen is significantly smaller than it would
That's
be
true.
living in my dad's house. which is what
That's
we
true.
did when we got back from Morocco. The answer is really yes. And farmers markets is one of the places where we find a majority of our produce because we are vegan. And love to use the things that are, you typically when you're looking at farmers markets and you are shopping locally for produce, you need to shop for things that are in season. So sometimes we've gotten really good in the Airstream about making up random meals. I don't use my cookbooks as much as I used to. Instead, it ends up being like, what is the beautiful produce that we have and what kind of canned beans or whatever, and can we make like a weird random recipe? And it's actually been quite fun. So,
honestly, you've become such an amazing cook. Honestly, I mean, I think when we first met, I was the cook in the family, and I was told, Lauren, cook with reckless abandon. It's like a Dalai Lama quote, right? And Lauren would always follow the recipe to a T. Like measuring cups are all out on the table, and like measuring like down to the ounce and the teaspoon. And I said, screw those teaspoons and measuring cups. Just make it happen. And over the years, I do that a lot now. I know, more than ever. I know. Like on. So okay, I love what Matt just said. I didn't know this. He said the small businesses and boutiques around here in Tampa Bay are doing live shopping on Facebook and selling bagging and bringing your purchases to your car. That is so cool. So local businesses are being smart. They're coming up with new creative ways. Just getting online and researching it is a really big piece of this. I can't tell you how many times when I'm like, okay, one of the biggest things that I wondered about with shopping 100% American made is how am I going to shop for toothpaste? I mean, what? That's such a weird thing. Yeah. But I literally got on the internet and Googled it and found Tom's of Maine and ordered their toothpaste directly from them. And it's freaking fantastic. So taking the time when there's something that you know that you need or that you're going to buy and being more conscientious about what that shopping experience is going to look like, just shop for American-made business or American-made products. And there are a lot of great directories online that can help you with that. Some of the ones, I usually just Google the product and then look for a company. We are pretty big fans, obviously, because we love Airstream. Airstream Supply Co. They're almost all American-made businesses. They've got a couple of Canadian locally owned businesses, which we love too. But we use them, and then I do a lot of Google searching to find the kinds of products that we need. Liz, favorite brewery, the one that serves beer, because that's a horrible answer. No, I mean, here in the Tampa area, Cigar City, Cycle Brewing, you have my heart, believe me. But when we travel, I want to try them all, right? So I walk into a brewery and I always ask, what is the beer you're most proud of? And a lot of times with some of the smaller breweries, you might actually be talking to the guy that owns a brewery. You just don't even know it, because we try to go to some of the microbreweries, and they're like locally owned, small microbreweries. And when I say, what's the one beer you're most passionate about? And he goes, oh, no, hold on. Let me get this one. And like a lot of times they'll pull a bottle out of the back that they're not even serving to the general public, and they'll pour a glass for you. And that just makes it such a special moment, because, they're most passionate about that one beer. And we've had such amazing beers around the country so far. So Liz, since Daniel can't answer your question, I'm pretty preferential to Goose Island. They have really epic sours, and we didn't actually get to go to the brewery when it's in Chicago, right? It is, yeah. We were up in Chicago and had to leave a little bit early because they were getting snow the next day, and we have not been brave enough to face snow and freezing temperatures in the Airstream. But Daniel did get a bottle at a local, local shop. Local shop. Yep. And so we enjoyed some of that before we left. But Tina has another good question. She said, how do you find locally owned RV parks and places to stay? This is probably one of the most time-consuming things I did not expect about RV living. Well, let me start with this first, right? So when you start RVing, you're going to hear about KOA. I think KOA is kind of like the Marriott of RV parks. There are so many of them. They're easy to get to. You can just kind of pull off the highway and there's a KOA, right? One thing that we found out when we asked some of the KOA people is that a majority of them are owned by KOA, but there actually are a few KOAs that are locally owned. We don't know how to figure out which KOAs are locally owned, but we know that they exist. Back to you about the other stuff.
So, so that's a good point.
Yeah.
But with RVing, it's so insane level popular to be RVing right now. I'm sure all of you guys already know that. So especially in peak season places like right now here in the South, whether that be Florida or Texas or whatnot, it's a lot harder to find a spot, especially if you're looking for more long-term stays. So what I have found is the best way to do it is simply kind of like what I talked about with other local businesses is do a Google Maps search. They are not nearly as savvy as some of the restaurants and other local businesses. Sure. So it's a lot of picking up the phone, talking to them, and just finding out what's going on. But we've had so much fun getting to connect with local RV parks. We stayed in a really fun one in my hometown in Goodlettsville, Tennessee, that was locally and family owned. The family actually lived there too.
Multi-generational too. The grandfather was working the register.
And they had local musicians who came every night to play music. And that was really, really cool. So our experiences at the locally owned RV parks have been incredible and part of the thing that has made our trip so special.
That's true.
Okay, let's see. So Matt, that really makes me so happy to hear that your woodwork sold out when the store was open again. So that means people are shopping local, which is amazing. And then Chris asks, how hard has it been finding vegan food while traveling?
One of us is a little stricter than the other. So throw that out there. One of us is 100% vegan. The other is like
a cheeseaholic.
For the cheese that she is not currently eating, I do make up for that. Cheese has been a very difficult thing for me to give up. I haven't given up anything. Actually, I'm still eating tons of cheese, but I would consider myself a vegetarian, whereas she's definitely the vegan.
And it's definitely more difficult to find vegan food on the road, especially in the South and away from big cities.
So the two places we go to when we're traveling it's pretty much surefire. It's going to be Italian or Mexican. Because you can typically always find vegan or vegetarian options at Italian or Mexican restaurants anywhere in the country.
And Vietnamese.
Oh, Vietnamese.
Love Vietnamese
That's true.
food.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
You can always find vegetarian. Yeah, good point.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about a lot of random stuff. So let's see if there are other tips. So, okay. So we've talked about extra produce. One of the things that's near and dear to my heart. So for those of you guys who know me, if I had a real resume before it said CEO of the Symphony Agency, it would say that my last job was bartender at the Blue Rooster, which was in my college town. So,
and I've benefited from that many times. So throwing that out there.
My bartending skills
bartender
are not nearly as good as they used to be. But why that is relevant is that I used to live off of tips. In college, I was like a total nerd and would work a bajillion hours on top of going to school, bartending and waiting tables. And tipping is one of the easiest ways that you can do a great job at giving back to your local community. Because when you put a tip on a restaurant bill, you're getting your hair done, whatever it may be, that's a great way of money going directly to our economy. So I like for people to know that the rule of thumb of tipping in America is first, if it's just drinks, $1 per drink is appropriate. And 20% for good service is kind of what is expected. But during a pandemic, when we know that most of your servers are making like,
oh my gosh, they're struggling,
a couple of dollars an hour outside of tips. So if you have the ability and the privilege to be able to give a little bit more, whether it's just a couple more dollars or 25% instead of 20, that's another really great way and something that we make sure that we're doing on a regular basis to give back to the community.
Yeah, and honestly, it really does matter for these servers, because while 15 or 20% may be the standard, you got to understand that, I mean, people are struggling right now. So a lot of times they might get 0%. So
and if you can't tip 20%, that's okay too.
It's okay.
I think people understand that everybody is struggling. But if you are blessed and able to do that, that's another great way you can give back. But it's also important to note that there are a lot of ways that you can support small businesses that have nothing to do with spending anything more than you were already planning on.
I've got something that's even more powerful than a tip. If you really want to help that business out, get your butt online and leave them a review, right? Leave them a badass review. I mean, if you really enjoy that place and you've never gone online and left reviews for your favorite restaurants, now is the time to do it, because the value of that review is so much more than probably any tip that you could ever leave. I mean, it really, really matters. So,
and you can do them on any of your favorite platforms. I would strongly suggest that we really think the most powerful one is Google. Jumping on Google, finding their local business page, leaving a review, giving a shout out, especially if you have like a favorite server, make sure to mention their name, because that can be an extra bonus point for them when their boss reads it, which is awesome. But also, more than just leaving reviews, sharing the things that you're purchasing on social is huge. You'll notice if you follow us on social media that we're constantly using that cool little Instagram button or sticker. I'm not that fancy. I don't know what the things are really actually called. That's for small businesses, and you can tag their Instagram handle and you can actually click and get to the local business, but giving them that support, just engaging with their social media or their online, like their email, signing up for their email if it's somebody that you use on a regular basis. Not only will you probably find discounts associated with that, but it's a huge thing. And then just engaging instead of just liking it with the thumbs up, like use the emojis that have a little more weight in the social algorithms, like the heart or the wow. That's a great way to help support a local business too.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of priority for reviews, because this is what we do for a living, start with Google and leave as many reviews as you can for these businesses that you love. And then from there, just move over to Facebook. Like, go to Facebook. I mean, literally social media is, what is it? It's word of mouth, right? So if we get online and we talk about our favorite restaurants or things that we enjoy, I mean, that's what social media is, word of mouth.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it makes a difference to these small businesses. So now that we've talked your ear off for a little over 30 minutes, we just want to encourage you, please, 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 as you're thinking about your holiday shopping this year, look for local businesses to support. They desperately, desperately need us now more than ever. And thanks for coming and hanging out with us this evening. Anybody have last minute questions?
Oh, that's a great question.
Jane, that's a great question. Daniel, do you want to take that one? So Jane asks, being it can be very confined. How do you keep from annoying each other?
Well, since we both work out of the Airstream, there are days where we both sit at the kitchen, like a area, and we're like laptop to laptop. And there are days when we're at a campground, right? And they pretty much all have outdoor picnic tables. And I just take my laptop outside and I just work majority of the day outside on the picnic table. And I always call it, it's the corner office with the best view, because you're constantly moving, you're at new locations. And we recently just came from Arkansas, and the picnic table is facing the river. And I thought to myself, this has to be one of the most beautiful views I've seen in our entire journey. And this is my work office, right? I just like flip open my laptop and I'm working in one of the most beautiful places in the country.
I love what Mabel says. I guess wine helps Daniel, right? It's more often beer. I'm more of the wine drinker, but that is definitely true.
Cigar City.
I will say, one of the funniest things, and we probably need to make a video of this soon.
That's so true.
Is that there is very real. When we were in Chicago, not only was it cold, but it rained for like 4 days straight.
So true.
So whereas we typically are able to use the outdoor space to get a little personal space, that was like a no-go for like,
that's true.
It was at least 4 days. It was so long, but we found some creative solutions. So first, Daniel would put on, because I'm not getting out of the Airstream in the rain. Daniel would put on his rain jacket and he would go work out of the truck, which was actually pretty efficient and worked. We had to do that. But yes, Manuela, probably wine. I don't know if our wine intake has increased. Probably not, because we're outside so much and have so many fun things to do when it's not raining, but probably when it rains.
That's another good thing, though. We typically, when we always travel, we go to coffee shops and we do a lot of video calls, right? Sometimes coffee shops are quiet, and sometimes, if you're traveling, you know this, they are noisy as hell. I mean, you're literally like, you hear all the clinking from the espresso machines and people talking and yapping, and
headphones are essential.
Oh my gosh.
Headphones are essential.
Noise canceling headphones. If you're traveling and working abroad, 100%. I have AirPod Pros, wherever they are, and she has some other headphones. But noise canceling headphones, definitely a way to go if you're working remotely and you need to do some video conferencing. I mean, 100%.
Okay, so literally, Liz will give you the last question. What is our next stop? So the answer is we have no freaking idea.
Oh my gosh, no idea.
So like I mentioned at the very beginning of this, we are back in Tampa Bay right now. Where you are seeing behind us is my dad's condo, who has kindly taken us in while we are homeless and waiting for our Airstream. Our Airstream was supposed to arrive here in Tampa Bay on the 22nd, but like all small businesses right now, they're having a little bit of issues.
Supply chain issues.
Fun stuff. So
happening.
Thankfully, we heard back from them yesterday, and they let us know that it should be shipping to Tampa Bay as of Monday, which we're so pumped about.
That's so true. And little sneak peek here, we're having some modifications made to our new Airstream.
So we're going to be here a week or two more than we really expected to be because we got to get those fun modifications made.
We're getting some modifications made, and they're going to take it to another level. But we'll show you that when it's, when those things are installed.
But our plan and what we've just decided in 2020 is that this year is something that you really can't plan for. What our thought process is that we will go back up like North Florida and start following the southern following the southern coastline.
If you heard the beginning of this, we're like efficiency experts. We started off with a plan that was literally a data scientist calculated the most efficient way to travel the country. And we began with that in mind. And we're going to follow that journey. Like, here's the most efficient way to travel the entire country. It's 2020. Crap happens. Gone. So we went up north. We got as much time up north as we could before it froze. We're Floridians. Well, we spent a lot of time.
A long time.
Yeah, so our blood thinned. We get cold. So we went back down south. We're here in Florida. We're picking up our Airstream. We're going to follow the southern track to Louisiana, Alabama, Texas, hook over to California. We're going to bounce over to probably Hawaii at that point.
Something like that.
Yeah. Then we'll go up towards Seattle. We'll jump up to Alaska because we have to hit Alaska. And then we'll start kind of zigzagging back across the country.
But like I said, this is 2020. So we'll see how that goes. That's the plan. But at the end of the day, thank you guys so much for joining us. This is our very first live stream. So y'all have made us feel significantly less silly. And we love each and every one of you guys for that.
Seriously.
The whole idea behind this live stream was to talk about how important it really is right now to shop local. So as you're thinking about your holiday shopping, make sure you live, love local.
Yes.
And wander local around your towns and make sure you're spending money locally because it does make a difference for your community. Okay, we love you guys. See y'all soon.
Bye, y'all.